Hi everyone, and welcome to a new and long-awaited video where I'll try to show you how to run the latest version of macOS called Tahoe inside the virtual machine on top of a Windows PC. During the video, I will explain the high-level steps, go through the necessary preparations, perform the actual installation of macOS Tahoe on a virtual machine, and finish with a set of post-installation actions. This includes fixing audio and applying the necessary patches to allow login with your Apple account for iCloud and the App Store. The result should be a fairly workable macOS setup for experimenting and playing around with Tahoe in a virtual machine. As with my previous videos on this topic, my goal is to not use any pre-created images and avoid the requirement for any Apple hardware or another macOS-based system. As mentioned, I created similar videos for previous versions of macOS on my channel. This latest version, macOS Tahoe, was released by Apple way back in September already. And in the meanwhile, a lot of people requested me to cover this version. Apple made quite some changes in Tahoe, added liquid glass, increased security, and also removed a lot of support for older hardware, which is heavily used for this type of experiments. These changes are not so different from previous releases, but typically the OpenCore Legacy Patcher and related projects, which are all trying to work around all of these limitations to get macOS running on unsupported hardware, which also includes virtual machines of course, would come with an updated version in the months following a release, adding support for that latest version. Unfortunately, this time there's been more difficulties, not only because of Apple's changes or restrictions, but also due to changes within the mentioned development teams. Hence the reason why I was postponing this video, while following up on any progress, news or updates. So far, there still is no solid support for Tahoe in OpenCore or OCLP. You will see further in the video that Tahoe is running far from optimal in the VM as well. So, in case you're looking for a better and more fluent experience, I would definitely recommend going through the steps for Sequoia instead, covered in a video for which you can find a card here or a link in the description. If you're curious from what Tahoe specifically has to offer or can live with some downsides, especially performance related, then definitely this video is for you. The starting point for this video is my HP EliteBook 840G7. It is equipped with an AMD Ryzen 7 as a CPU and 32GB of RAM. Slightly lower specifications should work as well, but do keep in mind that running macOS in a virtual machine is pretty resource hungry. Let's start by explaining the high-level steps which we will go through. We will begin everything with some preparation work and get the free version of Vmware Workstation downloaded and installed, followed by some tools like QEMU and OC4VM, which we will need for the rest of the process. For each of these, I will provide a link in the description. In the next steps, we will download a Tahoe recovery image from Apple and convert it to a VMDK file. This will be the image that we boot to start the Tahoe installation in the virtual machine. That image, combined with the VM template provided in the OC4VM package, will be used to create the actual virtual machine. In step 5 then, we will finally boot that virtual machine and run to the whole macOS installation. Once macOS is installed, we will already have a working system, but installing the VMware tools will make the machine run a bit more smooth and comfortable. Step 7 covers enabling shared folders for easy file exchange between the host system and virtual machine. And once we have that working, we'll also take a look at how we can fix the lack of audio devices due to the removal of analog audio support in Tahoe. And last but not least, I will show you how you can apply some small patches which will fix an issue which would prevent you from logging in with your Apple ID to use iCloud or the App Store. Now that we know what to do, let's start by getting that Vmware Workstation Pro installed. I have a link to the download page handy here and I will provide the same in the description of the video. Let me copy it, open Chrome and paste the link. This should bring you to a login page for the Broadcom portal. In case you don't have an account yet, make sure to use the link on the top right here, click register and follow the rest of the process. Once your account is created, or if you already have a login, log in to Broadcom's website with your account. Unfortunately, after logging in, the website forgets the full link we pasted. You could just paste it again at this point and it should bring you to the correct place, or simply click on My Downloads, then here on the free downloads link, and in the list go to VMware Workstation Pro and choose for VMware Workstation Pro 25H2 for Windows. I chose to download the 25H2 version as I read that there are some potential issues with newer versions. You can always try that new version, but know that it might be needed to stick with 25H2 for now. On the next page, click the download icon next to the only version in the list. Once the download completes, navigate to your Downloads folder and double-click on the installer. Click yourself through the steps and wait for the installation to complete. Step 1 is done, and the next step is to download two required tools. The first one is OC4VM, which stands for Open Core for VMware. This is a bundle created by Dr. Donk that combines a set of tools, files, templates, and more, which makes it a lot easier to use Open Core to run macOS on top of VMware. As with Vmware Workstation, you can also find a link to this in the description. Let me copy that link now and paste it in my browser. On the OC4VM GitHub page, we need to go to the Releases section. At the time that I created this video, as you can see, the most recent version available was 2.5.0. In case you would want to follow this video exactly, I definitely recommend to download the same version. If you want to experiment and make use of some potential improvements, just as with the Vmware Workstation Pro version, feel free to try anything newer at your own risk. Let's scroll down a bit here and download that mentioned OC4VM 2.5.0.zip. Secondly, let's also download QEMU. Same as before, just copy the link provided and paste it in your browser. We will use the QEMU package only for a single tool called QEMU-img that will allow us to convert the Tahoe recovery image to a file that is usable by VMware. On this page, I chose a version from December 24, but any version should do fine. Once the download completed, let's go back to the Downloads folder and start by installing QEMU by double-clicking on the installer and run through the rest of the installation wizard. This shouldn't take long. QEMU is now also installed and ready to use. For OC4VM, go back to your Downloads folder, then right-click on the OC4VM zip file and choose Extract All and extract all files in a subfolder here. Inside the OC4VM folder, we can see VMware templates, tools, an ISO folder with the VMware tools, packages which contains the Voodoo HDA package for audio, and some more. For our next step, which is to download and convert a Tahoe recovery image, we need to navigate to the Tools folder first. In here, choose Windows, as that is the operating system which we are running currently. In this folder, we will use a file that is called recoveryOS in order to get the Tahoe recovery image from Apple's servers. recoveryOS.exe is actually a small wrapper that will try to call macrecovery.exe from the same folder to do the actual download. Unfortunately, there seems to be a small issue with this wrapper script. When I'm double-clicking recoveryOS.exe and get around the smart screen warning, we do see the expected menu presented, but when choosing any of the options, like number 7 for Tahoe, the tool immediately closes. Let's open a command prompt to have a better look at this. Then we can copy the path of the folder that contains recoveryOS and navigate to it in the command prompt by typing cd space and pasting the copied path. Now, when running recoveryOS from here and choosing that same option 7, we can see that the wrapper struggles to find macRecovery, although it is in the active path and same folder. To fix this, we can just add the folder containing the required files to the path variable instead. To do so, just type set path equals %path% to repeat the current active value of the path variable, followed by a semicolon, then again paste the path you copied earlier and press enter. Running recoveryOS now, and then again choosing option 7 to download the Tahoe recovery image, seems to finally do what we want. After the download of Tahoe.dmg completed, we should be able to use option 1 now in the menu in order to convert the downloaded DMG file to the VMDK format, but again, the tool struggles to find QEMU-image, which we definitely installed before we started. So instead, we will run the conversion manually, As with the links, I will also provide this command in the description of the video. Simply copy the command we need to use to convert, then paste it in the command prompt and press enter. This will run QEMU-image and convert the downloaded tahoe.dmg to tahoe-install.vmdk. After waiting for a few seconds, the result is indeed here, as we see that file called tahoe-install.vmdk. From here on, we don't need the originally downloaded files anymore and we can clean them up. All we need is that tahoe-install.vmdk. So let's select that file, cut it, and then navigate 2 levels up to the OC4VM directory. From here, navigate to the VMware folder and open the directory that contains the type of your CPU. As I'm running this on an AMD-based machine, this is obviously what I will choose. In here, we can now paste the tahoe-install.vmdk file so things are neatly together in a single folder. At this point, step 3 is complete and we can go ahead and create the virtual machine. Start VMware Workstation and on the home screen choose Open a virtual machine. Navigate to your Downloads folder, OC4VM, VMware, platform of your machine, AMD in my case, and then open the macOS.vmx file. Before we start to use the VM, let's make some small adjustments by clicking on Edit Virtual Machine Settings. First, I will increase the memory available to the VM to 16 GB. 8 should be fine as well, but more is better. In the processor section, I will increase the number of processors to 2, so we end up with 4 virtual CPU cores. Next, we need to link that downloaded and converted VMDK file to the VM. So click Add, select Hard Disk, and click Next. Leave the SATA option and click Next again. Then choose to use an existing virtual disk and browse to the directory containing your virtual machine as used previously. In here, select the tahoe-install.vmdk file and click Open. Click Finish to complete the process and choose to keep the existing format when asked to do a conversion. We now added that Tahoe recovery image to the VM, from which we'll boot up the system to start the macOS installer. Click OK to save the changes and then start the VM by clicking on Power On Virtual Machine. If all goes well, you should hear the typical Mac boot chime, followed by OpenCore briefly showing up, which will be responsible to launch the Tahoe recovery image that we just linked to that virtual machine. After a bit of waiting, about 2 minutes in my case, we get to the language selection. Here, select the language of your preference and click on the arrow on the right. At this point, we ended up in macOS recovery, and from here we can click on Reinstall macOS Tahoe. There is no need to go to the disk utility as the OC4VM template already contains a pre-prepared virtual drive. Click Continue, then agree to the terms and conditions, and confirm the same. In the disk selection screen, select Macintosh HD and click Continue. This will start the actual installation of macOS on that prepared virtual drive. Now you can take a small break and get some coffee or maybe something stronger. Do keep in mind that the time remaining at the bottom of the dialog isn't saying much. As I noticed, it can be completely off. During this process, macOS Recovery will actually download a lot of installation files from Apple servers, about 16 GB in size I believe. Depending on the speed of your internet connection, this definitely might take a while. After a long wait, eventually the system will do a reboot and show another completely wrong remaining time. And after another reboot, about 1 hour and 10 after I clicked the button to start the installation, I noticed that the system got stuck. I went through this process multiple times and consistently got the same behavior. If you see the loading bar being stuck at around the middle for several minutes, just exit the VM by pressing Ctrl+Alt on the keyboard, then right-click the VM in the list, and choose for Power, Reset, and confirm the action. After some more waiting, we can see that this action fixed the issue, and the process continues without any further problems. Eventually, we end up in the initial setup dialog on macOS. This is exactly the same as you would get when doing a fresh installation on a real Mac. Here we get to see one of the first glitches for macOS Tahoe in a VM. First of all, we saw the wallpaper disappear. But worse is that the mouse cursor and the whole system in general is extremely slow and unresponsive. Fortunately, there is no need to worry too much about this, as this issue will be gone when the setup is completed. But nevertheless, it's pretty annoying to go through, and it will definitely test your patience. I will speed up the footage here and there or cut out some parts to make this not too long. Let's start by clicking in the list with countries. Then type the first letters of the country to select and painfully navigate the mouse to the continue button and click. In the next screen, you can use the tab key to navigate to setup as new. Then use space to select that option and click the mouse again to continue. Here we can just click to continue. Same here with not now. And once again with continue. In the create account screen, press tab until you slowly get to the full name field and type your desired username. Then tap twice more to be able to enter the password, followed by tap again and repeating the password. 2 more taps and pressing space will deselect the requirement for Apple login, then click continue. This process takes a while to complete. In my case, it took almost 5 minutes before the next screen showed up. But that one as well took about another 2 minutes before I could actually click on setup later, as you can't log in here to your Apple account yet. Simply press enter to confirm you want to skip this. Agree to the terms and conditions again, then confirm that as well. Click continue to skip enabling location services, and once again press enter to confirm. I left the time zone settings as they are and clicked continue, as it will be a lot easier to change these once we have a working macOS system. Same for the analytics, where I just clicked continue. For screen time, I clicked on setup later, and file vault shouldn't be enabled, so I chose not now, then pressed enter to confirm. Once again, continue for light or dark mode, and here I chose only download automatically to prevent automatic updates to potentially break our installation. At this point, you'll probably notice that the system seems to be hanging again with just a white background. After waiting for a really long time, you can still see this background changing to the initial wallpaper, but to my experience, it never gets to the next phase, even after waiting for ages. In the multiple attempts that I went through, this was always the case. To move forward, as we already did before, exit the VM with Ctrl+Alt, then right-click the virtual machine in the list and choose for power, reset, and confirm the action. Eventually, after the virtual machine boots up again, the installation is complete and you should get presented with the login screen for the first time. Here you can type the password that you configured, followed by enter. If you made it this far, the worst part is over. We get to see the macOS desktop for the first time in the virtual machine, and from here on, performance should be a lot better than in the initial setup dialogs. Let's take a first look at about this Mac. We can see that we're definitely running macOS Tahoe on top of VMware. Moving the window around shows that responsiveness at least isn't terrible anymore. But let's improve that performance a bit more by installing the VMware tools. This will also provide some other improvements, like the ability to change the resolution to match the screen size, copy-pasting between Windows and the virtual machine, and sharing files and folders. OC4VM comes bundled with the VMware Tools ISO, which makes this fairly easy. In the VM, open Finder, then go to the Open Core volume on the left side, and in here go to the OC4VM folder, ISO, and double-click on the darwin.iso file to mount it. This should bring up the VMware Tools installer. Start the installation now by double-clicking on Install VMware Tools. Click through the installation wizard, enter your password if required, and allow all permissions when asked. When the system extensions are being installed, click on Open System Settings. In here, click on Allow and confirm by entering your password. Choose Not Now on the question to reboot. As you can see, our first attempt to install the VMware tools failed. Simply repeat the steps that we just did one more time and you should see that the installation completes without any issues the second time. I'm not sure why this happens, but on previous versions of macOS it was behaving exactly the same. There we go. As expected, the VMware tools are now installed with our second attempt and require a reboot to get active, so let's do that. When we get closer to getting the login screen, we can see some differences already as the tools trigger the virtual machine to adjust its resolution to match the window size. After login, we are back in macOS, which looks a bit better now due to that adjusted resolution. And let us take another look at About This Mac. In here, we can see that the type of graphics changed to 128 MB. And you should notice that overall performance and snappiness is a little bit better, but graphical performance will never really get very good. At this point, you have a more or less working virtual machine with macOS Tahoe. Let's go through some extra post-installation steps now to improve the experience even further. The first one is to enable shared folders. This will allow you to sharing files between your Windows host and the macOS guest. First, we need to enable this in the virtual machine settings. To do so, right-click on the virtual machine's name in the list and click on Settings. In the Options tab, go to Shared Folders, select Always Enabled and click Add. In here, I chose to share my desktop with the VM, but any other folder should do fine. Finish the rest of the steps, then click OK to save the changes. Now, to make this active on macOS, we need to reboot the virtual machine once again. To start using those shared folders now, we can navigate in Finder to Go Computer. In here, we now have the VMware Shared Folders icon, and in there we can see the desktop folder which I chose to share with the VM. Let's use this for the first time to configure a static Tahoe background. You might have noticed already that the dynamic wallpaper is showing as just white. This is due to the lack of graphical acceleration inside the VM. The fix or workaround better is to configure a static wallpaper instead. In my browser, back on the Windows machine, I'll just search for a macOS Tahoe wallpaper and download that to the desktop. In the VM, if I navigate back and reopen the shared desktop folder to refresh it, we can see the downloaded wallpaper in there. I can just copy this file to the virtual machine as any other file, and by right-clicking on the file, I can also set it as my desktop picture. I think that looks a bit better. Unfortunately, the new liquid glass interface isn't working very well in the virtual machine. This is because of the same reason as a dynamic wallpaper, lack of graphical acceleration. Since we can't make use of it anyway, I noticed that it's better to disable it. To my feeling, this slightly increases performance as well. Let me copy the command that will accomplish this, which you can also find in the description of the video. And then back in the VM, let's go to Applications, Utilities, and Start Terminal. In Terminal, we can just paste the command which we copied on the Windows machine and press Enter to execute it. After that, we need to perform another reboot of macOS to make these changes effective. Having the ability to copy back and forth between Windows and macOS makes life definitely a lot easier, as you can see. After the reboot, we can still see the weird effects in Finder, although a bit less, and as mentioned, I think this slightly helps with performance. If desired, you can also use the virtual machine in full screen. The VMware tools should adapt the resolution automatically. This gives a more native experience, and although not blazing fast, you can see this is more than usable for playing around. The next thing which I will cover is the lack of audio devices under Tahoe in the VM. As you can see, there are no audio devices found. And this is because Apple removed support for analog audio with Apple HDA in this version. We'll use Voodoo HDA instead to work around that. Installing Voodoo HDA requires changes to some directories which are under system integrity protection. So before we can make use of the installation package, we need to change that. To do so, reboot the virtual machine, and once you hear the chime and OpenCore pops up, use your arrow keys on the keyboard to move the selection to OpenShell and then press Enter to start that. OpenShell shows you a list of known file systems. If you follow this step by step, FS8 is the one we need, but you can easily try them one by one if it wouldn't match. Just type the file system name, followed by a colon, and this is case sensitive as you can see. Then type dir and press Enter to see the contents. We need the volume which contains an EFI and OC4VM folder. In there, navigate to EFI, OC, Tools. Using a tool called csrutil.efi, we can get the current SIP status first, which returns as enabled. Now to disable it, we need to run the tool again with argument disable and value 0xa85. Repeating the status command shows us that this was a success. Let's type reset now and press Enter to boot back into macOS from here. Back in macOS, to continue, we need to install the Voodoo HDA-Tahoe package. This one also comes bundled with OC4VM for convenience. So let's use the shared folder to get it in the virtual machine. Let me exit from full screen first and then go to the OC4VM folder in my downloads. In the packages folder here, we can see what we need. I'll copy this to the desktop on Windows. Now we can go back to our VM and open the shared folder and run the installer from there. Enter your password when asked. And when complete, open System Settings and allow the Voodoo HDA kernel extension to run. After that's done, we need another reboot. Back in macOS, when going to System Settings, Sound, now we can see that we do have the expected audio devices present. That's one more issue we got fixed. The final issue to tackle is related to logging in with your Apple ID to the VM. Without any adjustments, when we're trying to log in with an Apple ID on the virtual machine, for example from the App Store here, we get to see the message "An unknown error occurred." This behavior was the same for previous releases of macOS running in a virtual machine as well. On those older versions, we could hide the fact that we're running in a virtual machine by using a plugin called vmhide, which, after enabling, allowed logging in with your Apple ID. This workaround, unfortunately, no longer works on Tahoe, so we need to use a different method to fix this. It took me some time to find a working fix for this latest version, but a post on the AMD OS X forum, which by the way also largely covers what I did here, pointed me in the right direction. We will need to change the configuration file used by OpenCore, called config.plist, and include 2 additional patches in there. Our virtual machine has this file located on the OpenCore volume in EFI, OC. Because of the way OC4VM is set up, this file is read-only, as you can see by the locked indication on top here. To make it writable, we first need to shut down the virtual machine. Then let's right-click on the VM and choose for Open VM Directory. In here, locate the macOS.vmx file and open it with Notepad. In the file, search for the only parameter that includes read-only, referring to the hidden OpenCore boot volume, and change that to false. Then save the file and boot up the virtual machine again. Back in macOS, navigate again to OpenCore, EFI, OC, and locate config.plist. For your convenience, I uploaded the already edited version of this file and provided a link to it in the description as well. In theory, as long as all versions are the same as I used in my video, you could simply replace that file with my edited version. To prevent a mismatch in the future or changes over time, I will show you how to edit the file manually though. Copy the link to the edited version from the video's description, then open Safari in the virtual machine and paste the link. Don't worry about the lack of formatting here, it will look a bit more readable in a bit. In Safari, then go to File, Save As, and save the file on the desktop in macOS. Now let's open the original config.plist, which we will edit on the left side by side, to the downloaded and pre-edited version on the right. In the file on the right, search for iCloud to locate the iCloud patches. You can see these are two patches and they are located right above the work section that begins with Apple CPU PMCFG log. So let's locate the same in the file on the left. In the edited file on the right side, now select both patches and carefully paste them on the same place in the original config.plist. To make things clean, I'll also fix indentation here, but that shouldn't really matter. That's all we need to do, so we can save the config.plist which we just edited. You can ignore the message about older versions. And as you might have guessed, we need to do another reboot to apply the changes which we just made. OpenCore loads this file on boot, so that makes perfect sense, but honestly, I lost count about the amount of times we rebooted this virtual machine already. If your system would become unbootable in case you made a mistake by editing the config.plist, you can replace the opencore.vmdk file in your virtual machines folder with the original version which you find in the same version of the OC4VM package that you used. This should revert those changes. In my case, everything seems to still be working as expected and macOS is starting up. Let me launch the App Store again now and check if I'm able to log in with my Apple ID. This already looks promising as it's different from last time. And after entering the two-factor authentication code, you can see that I now successfully logged in. This works as well for the rest of the features that depend on Apple ID like iCloud. We can also still clean up that edited config.plist as we don't really need that on here. Other than that, that's all I have for this video. As you could see, macOS Tahoe does work in a virtual machine on top of Windows. Performance is not great, but you could see that when going through the last patching steps, for example, it's not completely unworkable either. After this, I also tested increasing the core count to 8, which improves performance even a little bit more. Hopefully, this gives you a rough idea on the state of things when it comes to running macOS Tahoe in a virtual machine or in general on unsupported hardware. If you're giving this a try yourself, let me know in the comments how it worked out for you, or let me know if there are any questions. In case you have enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a like, and if you're into these kind of videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks again, and hope to see you again here soon.